life appears meaningless and unfulfilling when you force it to fit your thoughts and your concepts, your mind. There is an enormous vastness of what we are capable of experiencing as human beings, but that vastness can not at all be conceptualized, can be thought about, can be communicated. That which we can think about in form, that which we can communicate, conceptualize, is just a small fraction of what we can actually experience. So in order to experience the fullness of what is humanly possible to experience, to give your life meaning and completion, is to learn to experience without compulsory conceptualizing. We have grown completely accustomed to conceptualizing everything that happens around us. And so we lose actually the real experience. When we label everything, when we name everything, when we know everything, when we understand everything with the mind, then we strip away actually the enormous vastness of life. And then in that very small conceptual world that we then live in, we try to find meaning. We try to find completion. And then usually what keeps us going is to place that completion, that fulfillment, into the future. And so we place a thought upon it. We think it has to be something in terms of good relationships, or money, financial abundance, and therefore worldly abundance, or supreme health, or supreme security. Now, all of these things that I just mentioned, of course, have their place in our life, and they are important, but they are not the experience of fulfillment. They are not bringing fulfillment. Nobody who has those things is therefore fulfilled. But the fullness of life is not to be found in the future, and it is not to be found in anything outside of ourselves. It is to realize that we are limiting the fullness of everything with our own mind, with our own unknowingness, with our own ignorance. The fullness of life is experienced when we see through this ignorance, when we develop self-knowledge, when we expand our consciousness, because everything that we are searching for is already here and is already complete and whole. The problem is not that we need to find something in the future, or that there's something missing, or that life is incomplete, but the problem is that we conceptualize everything. And a concept, per definition, is extremely limited. So conceptualizing is what human beings do. It's a capability of our mind. Imagination, thinking, imagining something that is not here right now. Storing information in the mind, remembering things, learning about things, about the properties of things. That's all imagination, and it is a human feature. It's beautiful. I personally love to think. I love to imagine. But the problem is that we do it so often that it has become like in the foreground of our mind. Our whole experience is filtered through this imagination. And that causes a limitation, because now the whole world is perceived as concepts, which are very limited. A concept is not the reality of life. It's a concept. So we're going to get to how to experience the fullness of life, or what needs to change. But first, let's look a little bit further at what it actually is, this conceptualization. This human feature of creating concepts is amazing, because we can store information outside of ourselves this way. And we can store information relevant to creation and to how things work in the world. And so you can now read up on, you can use the information that so many people in the past have gathered for you. That's beautiful, isn't it? That is the world of information that we live in. And it is absolutely great. But it is not the reality of life. What we experience in the world of information is so much more vast than just the concept of it. The concept is that which we can actually store. In order to store information, we have to limit it completely. We have to limit it so far as to the essence of what is needed in order for it to be recreated. So we reduce what is into something so small that we can write it down, that we can store it. But that information is, of course, not what the experience was. That's why it always remains so much different if you hear somebody talk about something than if you would actually have been there, right? Whatever you can experience in the moment, in a certain situation, is so much bigger than what you can read in a book, right? And the best experiences that we can have is when you are experiencing something and you let go completely of the thinking mind, right? If you can settle down your mind when you're in, let's say, a natural environment, but actually it works everywhere, but let's say a natural environment, and you let go of the mind, you let go of thinking, then you can experience so much more, right? If you can be attentive like 100% without interfering mind loops, then things get so much bigger. And everything that you then experience, like in awe, how much of that can you actually describe? How much could you write down or say to somebody else, right? The only thing that you can eventually say is, you just had to be there, right? So when we have that feeling like you just had to be there, that means we are in awe. And in fact, all the time you can be in awe if you learn to let your mind fall away. If you learn to let your mind not interfere with your experience. Because the mind reduces experience. Either the mind is cluttering your experience and therefore you experience just a little bit of what is actually happening, or the mind labels things and explains things and understands things. And by doing that, it limits completely what we are experiencing. The fullness of life is experienced when you can let your mind rest and when you can heighten your senses, when your mind regains its place as for what it is, not as the interfering thing that is constantly explaining to you what life is supposed to be about. But when it can be what it is, a tool, then the meaning of life becomes apparent on its own, without us having to do anything about it. Self-knowledge comes with the fullness of life. It's like included in a package. And the only thing we have to do for that is to look more, to experience more, in a calm state of mind, letting the mind rest, letting the mind, subside in presence, because everything happens in presence. Nothing happens outside of presence. Time is a faculty of the mind. Great thing, but you don't experience life in time. You don't experience life yesterday. You can experience a thought of yesterday right now, which is nostalgia. Nostalgia can give you a little bit of good feelings, but it's incomparable to what the opening up, the unfolding of this right now has to offer. Self-knowledge is the key to meaning, fullness. And that does not dismiss that you want to move ahead in life, or that you want to create things, or that you want to have a good family life, or that you want to make a lot of money. Those are just the games of life. That creation in the world is what this life is about, but it does not fulfill. Fulfillment is already there. And then upon that, we play the game. When we think that fulfillment is going to be found in anything in the world, then we are in confusion. We are in ignorance. Self-knowledge expels that ignorance, makes life fulfilled and complete, expands consciousness, and then all that's left to do is to play the game.